Hello there, welcome to my review of the Rockford Files Season 2, Episode 2, The Farnsworth Stratagem, written by Juanita Bartlett and directed by Lawrence Downey. The episode begins in rare fashion with Jim, Dennis and Dennis's wife on their way to a hotel that Dennis apparently owns for a vacation.
All right, the gag worked. Let's go to the right hotel. I'd like to play a little golf.
This is the hotel.
As it turns out, he only owns 2.5% of the hotel as part of a syndicate.
Oh, yes, here you are right up at the top of the list. Names are arranged alphabetically.
Unfortunately, the manager, played by returning Gerald McRaney, explains that the syndicate owns the hotel, but not the rooms, which were sold off separately.
But what's a hotel without rooms? What did I buy?
The lobby.
Becca has been conned and is now up to his neck on a worthless investment. Luckily, he happens to be with one of the best con artists on the West Coast.
Suddenly somebody dropped out. There's 2.5% opened up and they roped their mark. It's classic, you know.
The next day, Rockford gets a visit from a returning Linda Evans, this time playing Audrey Wyatt, a fellow conned investor who initially tries to dissuade Jim from investigating before offering to help fund the case.
I spent the entire morning on the phone with my attorney in New York. I read the contract to him word for word. He says it's ironclad.
I promised Dennis I'd poke around a little. It can't hurt.
Well, if you are going to investigate, I'd like to be part of it. Split the cost.
That is when the trouble really starts. Unable to find the con man, Simon Lloyd, Becca then tells Jim that Lieutenant Deal's wife is also an investor, and he gets a visit from the bank telling him they plan to foreclose on his loan because he's investigating this scam. Then Beth tells him the syndicate's contract is ironclad and they got conned fair and square.
Never saw a contract that didn't have a loophole.
However, Jim thinks he spotted an angle he can exploit.
Then the syndicate bought the mineral rights along with the lobby?
Right.
This is a fast-paced, information-heavy first act, but it does a great job of setting everything up and really utilises everyone involved. With Audrey acting as the audience surrogate, it allows Jim to explain how the con works without feeling like exposition.
Now, Simon Lloyd was the operator, but somebody put up the marks. Found the victim, and somebody roped him.
And while thanks to 50 years of TV crime shows, we might be aware of some of the jargon he uses, it's still nice to see them take the time to explain it. It works to make the audience feel like we are part of the case. Plus, Evans's performance as Audrey is just suspicious enough to make us think she might be more involved with the con than she claims. The addition of Jim's visit from the bank might seem like over-egging things, but it actually works on two levels, as it gives Jim a personal stake in the investigation, but also demonstrates that Lloyd has some powerful connections. And this allows Rockford to be prepared for what comes next. What does come next is the arrival at the hotel of Rockford as oil tycoon J.W. Farnsworth, along with his drilling crew, which includes Angel and Rocky, making this the first time that all four regular supporting actors appear in an episode together. Jim has realised that the syndicate technically owns the mineral rights to the hotel, so he plans to dig for and find oil at the hotel in order to get the syndicate bought out by the people that were originally scamming them. It's great to see the whole gang in an episode and have it all make sense. Dennis is the mark, Beth provides legal advice, Angel is always willing to get involved with a con, and Rocky, who normally would have nothing to do with anything like this, is in it because it's Dennis, who is friends with both the Rockfords. I also love the subtle nod to Beth and Jim's relationship as she apologises for not having been able to join him and the Beckers for their vacation.
Sorry I couldn't make this weekend.
So am I.
In no time at all, Jim's three-ring circus is upsetting the residents just as he planned, and one of them demands the return of Lloyd, suggesting the residents are all well aware of the scam syndicate. As we see the scale of Jim's con, it's truly impressive, as equipment and gear piles up in front of this luxury accommodation. Even Angel seems to be genuinely enjoying himself, although he can't help but want to run a side hustle.
Made a deal for earplugs, 28 cents a pair. Go back and sell them for $1.75. $1.50. Easy.
Forget it.
Jim then gets a threatening visit from a couple of goons from the complex, and his organised crime detector goes off the scale.
I just got one of those funny feelings.
Like what?
Like the answer's going to be something I don't want to hear.
As his con goes on, he discovers that Audrey was lying to him. She was initially part of the con, attempting to dissuade the syndicate and Jim from pursuing compensation and just accepting the loss. But having seen how good Jim is at the con, she decided to switch sides.
When I started, I was trying to cool the mark. But then you came up with this incredible scam. It's beautiful.
At this late stage, Jim has no choice but to let her continue and hope she doesn't cross him as Lloyd arrives to try and fix the mess. Simon Lloyd is played by our Columbo connection for this episode, Paul Jenkins, who appeared as Sergeant Douglas in The Most Dangerous Match. Lloyd attempts to resolve the situation peacefully and comes off as very charming, but Jim knows exactly what he wants out of it. Meanwhile, someone threatens Angel with cement shoes, and Becca has discovered that their apartment complex is filled with made men, exactly as Jim suspected and feared.
But I ain't good enough to be threatened. I was threatened. Concrete boots, that's what he said.
Lieutenant Deal's wife and me, we're running a country club for the mob.
Audrey appears to double-cross Jim, giving Lloyd the soil reports and causing him to bring in his mob pals to threaten Jim with a buyout that he has to accept.
There's no way you can force me to sell.
On the contrary, any number of ways that I can force you to sell.
In actuality, this was all part of the plan, and as Jim comes clean to one of the retired dons about the con, absolving himself of all responsibility, they appear to strike oil. Well, natural gas. And the con is done.
What did we hit?
Just what we were aiming at, the water main.
This is another fantastic episode. What starts as an unusual case of a friend getting conned turns into a web of deceit that never gets too complicated, but is still full of laughs. Evans's performance as Audrey is wildly different from her last appearance as Claire Prescott, and manages to seem at first suspicious, then trustworthy, just as she is revealed to be part of the original con. It's a perfectly set up rug pull that operates as its own con on the viewer. Due to the episode's lighter tone, the threat level is pretty low, even when it's confirmed that the mob is involved. But this doesn't detract from the episode, as it's not really about whether the con comes off, but the ride we go on watching it play out. On this level, the ending works perfectly. But I did feel it was a little rushed. Quickly setting up the Audrey double cross only to instantly reveal it's a triple cross, and I'm not sure how convincing it is that the conned mob bosses would accept Jim was in the clear and Lloyd was on the hook just because Jim told them the whole thing was a lie. It would have been nice if they'd had a bit more time making us think Audrey had really double crossed Jim and setting up Lloyd as the sole fall guy. but these are minor issues in what is a really enjoyable, if simple, episode. What I'm discovering is that my favourite episodes are the ones that make me wish they were longer, and this is definitely one of those. So this is a 5 out of 5 from me. Thank you. Goodbye.